let's do this. I've been looking forward to this interview for weeks. So yeah, you are a force. I don't even know where to start, honestly. So we're just gonna run with this one. So I know you're a law student. I know you were on American Idol. I know you did so many other different things, but I want to start from the beginning. Before all the fun stuff, what got you started in the sense of singing and just being this incredible personality? Like, where does this come from?
That's a really good question. As I've gotten older, I realized that both of my parents were big personality people. And so I definitely, sometimes you say, oh, I get that from my mom or I get that from my dad. I think I get the bigness of my life and my personality and who I am from both of my parents. I actually attribute that to why my parents got divorced, because they were both type A personalities. There was no balance. So, yeah, I mean, I think that is truly, where it comes from and where it all began.
So prior to you going on to American Idol, obviously you were singing, you were doing things before you decided to take that dive. What was one of the first moments that you realized hey, I really want to go with this. This is what I want to do? Because that's a big decision.
Yeah, so just to, that in a nutshell, I did it because I felt like I had to do it for me. But at that particular moment in my life, I had just graduated from college, and um, I just finished college. So probably my sophomore year in college, I was singing everywhere, doing all kinds of stuff. And I realized it wasn't happening for me the way that I wanted it to happen. So I shifted to my plan B, which was law school. And I had gotten accepted into law school right before I auditioned for American Idol. And they had come to Nashville. I auditioned for American Idol, and it was October 30th, 2002 when I auditioned, right? That was the day. And the first week of law school was December 2nd or December 3rd of 2002. And when I got the golden ticket, they said you have to be in Hollywood on December 3rd, 2020 or 2002. And I was like, ah! I was like, oh my God, I can't miss the first week of law school. Like, what am I going to do? I auditioned for this show. I don't even know what it is. Nobody knows what it is. And my friends, I had some friends and family who were very adamant about me auditioning. And that's why I auditioned, because at that moment, I had already changed my path, so to speak. I thought I had. And I said to myself, you know what? Go on this last audition. What have you got to lose? Because I'd been to every audition under the sun. I told people I'd go to the the opening of a Cracker Jack box. It didn't matter. I would be there, show up. And so that's kind of how I ended up at that audition.
Wow. So when you got the golden ticket, someone asked you from the show, I want to say it was Ryan. He's like, law school or American Idol? And you're like, duh, it's a no-brainer. It's American Idol, right? So you go on and your voice is like, you are a phenomenal singer. You hit notes that most people dream of hitting, and so on. So here you are, you're this young woman who is with this big decision of law school or American Idol. I would have chose the Idol too. Just for the reason of being able to do what you did. And this leads to my favorite scene from all your American Idol appearances. You and Simon going in a banter, and you're like, you suck.
Yeah, let him
I thought you were sexy. You suck.
I got so much flack for that from my hometown and all the people who went to my church, honey. My phone was blowing up, right? I had to turn my phone off like for 4 days because it was blowing up with, I had so many voicemails. Now, you shouldn't have said that. That was really disrespectful. And so, that is my parents' personality coming all the way through right there in that moment. But what Simon did was very clever. He evoked that response out of me because he was like, "Who is this girl? Like, she's here, we think she's a good singer, but we don't know who she was." Because I'm very, like, even though as extroverted as I am truly an introvert, and I love my solitude. I'm very private, and so when I went on the show, honey, I was clear. I was not there to make friends. I was there to do a job and, make it onto this show. I was so very clear about that. And so in that moment, when he said that to me, like, forget about live television, he insulted me. And
Yeah.
all I could think of in my mind was, oh my gosh, I've passed you 100 times in the hallway and you don't even say hi to me and you want to insult me on national television? And I was like, how dare you do that? You don't even know me, right? So, in my true Southern girl fashion, I was upset and I had to find a way to come back at him because I don't think maybe Justin Guarini had done it once done it on season one. Somebody did it on season one, I think, but I was like one of the only ones, and you didn't really do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was not a part of the plan. But it was live TV and they loved it. And I truly believe that that's why I got through.
I think he said, "Well, there's the spunk we've been waiting for." It
So
was
he
like some kind
knew.
of save, and so many people over the years, when it comes to him, he is kind of that, I mean, it's just who he is, right? Let's admit it.
Yeah,
It's the personality, so you kind of got to go with the flow, but you stood up for everybody else that wanted to say something. It's like you had that quick comeback. I loved it. I watched it like 10 times in a row, and I was like, yeah,
yeah.
good for you.
And then
It's
I was
grounding.
like, I was just like, that's not, I honestly, in my mind, I was like, that's not fair. Don't do that, so.
I also really loved your performance when you sang New York State of Mind.
I'm in a New York state of mind. Yeah.
Oh, your voice, it's like majestic, right?
Oh,
So here you are singing, and I have to know, like, were you terrified of singing something from Billy Joel when everyone knows who he is, right? So it's like there's this bar that's set. But as Smokey Robinson said, you laid it to rest, and girl, you can sing. Like, did you feel that yes, I did this? Like, do you feel like you nailed it right there?
you know what happened? So prior to going to American Idol, they had, back then, there was a list of songs that had been cleared for performance on live television. And there were not that many on season two, right? Because nobody knew what American Idol was. They weren't familiar. So the list was really short. Well, Billy Joel was on the list that they sent to us before we got there. They said, just
Huh.
here's a list. It's a short list, but this is what we got. So start thinking about it. So I don't know what week Billy Joel was, but it was way into the season. And I had already prepared my part. I had already prepared it. So, like, literally, I'm telling you, Hannah, when they would pick, so I don't think they do this anymore. They'd pick themes for the week.
Right.
When I tell you they announced Billy Joel, I ran so fast to put my name on that list and pick my song before anybody picked it because I was like, I got this one, honey. I got this one. And I had worked on that song with my high school choir teacher at home before I got there. So I was super confident that week in my ability and in the song choice because people were literally fighting over songs.
Wow. Well, you nailed it.
Thank
I mean,
you.
Smokey couldn't have said it any better, but you did. You nailed it. You wrote Eighth World Wonder, and I have to know, where did the inspiration come from that?
So I have to be honest, I didn't write it. I sung it, but I didn't write it. Three guys wrote that song. Funny enough, three guys wrote about the Eighth World Wonder. Maybe they wanted to be the Eighth World Wonder. I always wondered, like, how did three guys write a love song about, the Eighth World Wonder, right? Um, and sadly enough, one of the writers just recently committed suicide, Kyle Jacobs. And um,
Oh
when
no.
during the recording process, I was pretty close to Kyle, and of course, Kyle married Kelly Pickler, and so there's like this little incestuous little family there. Um, but I remember that entire experience was so fun, and working with these guys. Two of the guys were from America, from Nashville, and the other guy was from Canada. And I just remember, I think Eighth World Wonder was all of our first hit. And I just remember the excitement of all of us in the studio recording it. Like, I sung, this is funny because this was a Sean thing. Sean was one of the writers and the producer. Sean wanted me to record every line 15 times. So do the math on that, right? He wanted 15 perfect takes of every line. And I just remember going into the studio literally in my pajamas with a bag of Lay's, because, Lay's coats the throat.
Mhm.
And I just remember singing that song. And it's funny because I had not found my eighth world wonder then, and I still have not found my eighth world wonder now. So, I mean, but I think I am my own eighth world wonder. I think that is the realization that I'm coming to these days.
I would say you're 100% correct on that. Definitely. So,
Yeah.
in this journey that we've talked about so far, what are some of the most challenging times that you faced besides, everyone calling you about the Simon banter? But I mean, internally, what were you nervous? Were you, like you said, you didn't know what the show was, you're traveling, you had to make a decision with law school, American Idol. Like what what was your guide, or who was your Yoda to kind of help you?
God himself was my God himself was my guide. I feel like right now, I'm 45 now, so 20 years ago, I was on the show, and back then, I was just learning to trust my intuition and trust my gut, right? At 24, 25. And I had already accomplished more than I thought I could ever accomplish. I had bought a condo in college. I graduated college. I had studied abroad, like things that I never ever imagined that I would do, and
Mm,
so, you know, I'm a very, back then I was a very black and white person, which means, that's why I had a plan A, I had a plan B, C, D, I had a plan I, I had a lot of plans, like backup plans, be prepared, right? And so auditioning for this show was completely radical, right? And going on this show was like way outside the box, right? Like, I had to put my big girl pants on and be like, all right, what just happened? Because it literally is my Wizard of Oz moment where the tornado came in, picked me up, and dropped me off somewhere else in, California. I'd never thought I would live in LA, never considered it. I wanted to go to New York and audition for Broadway. Um, but I chickened out of that, just because I'd never been anywhere. So what was I going to do in the city, in New York City? And so I think the hardest thing for me, or just saying some of the challenges, was losing your anonymity, right?
mm,
I can remember, as I mentioned to you just a little while ago, I am truly an introvert.
mhm.
Like, I need to go in my shell so I can come out and be ta-da, I need to recharge to be ta-da, and so on the show, going out in public, like something simple as going to the grocery store, that you could not do,
Mm.
right? And so those basic things that I find a lot of joy in, and I take a lot of, I find a lot of peace in, I was not able to do those things. And so it really did change my life. For almost 1 year, I had to have a chaperone or a chauffeur everywhere I went. And I was like, I remember, this is a true story, Hannah. We were on tour in DC and I escaped.
You
Okay.
chaperone?
The security guard. And I remember he called my cell phone and I was like somewhere in a cafe in the back corner, like peeking out the window at him. And he was like, "Where are you? You're going to get me fired." And I was like, "I just need 20 minutes without you." He was so mad at me. And I really did feel bad, but my introvert completely took over and was like, "No,
You're
you're going to
like,
hide. You are going to hide for 30 minutes and you're going to sit by yourself." And so that was a really big challenge for me on the show, like finding, trying to find those moments of, just to recharge, you know?
yeah, to
Yeah.
breathe.
To breathe.
So when you were doing American Idol, how was it in the sense of the other contenders? Are they competitive? Are they supportive? Were they helpful? Or were they completely threatened because your voice is just there's nothing like it? I
Well,
mean,
it's interesting, right? Because once you make it into the top 10, you're pretty confident, right? No matter what style you are, you're like, I made it. So we're all good at this point, right? It's anybody's game at this moment, right? And so I think for me, I was just so focused and I was really clear that like I wasn't there to make friends. I was there. For me, it was a competition. So I would say I was probably one of the most competitive people there. Maybe. I don't know how. I'm curious. Like I don't know what everyone else would think about that if they would see me that way. I don't think I'm not like verbally competitive, right? Like I'm not walking around like wah, 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 I'm not doing that. But I was pretty intense about the competition. But at the same time, I think we all were like, come on, you don't go to the Olympics and, not act like you're going to take it all home. Like, we all wanted to win. Um,
yeah.
so I think it was competitive, but I do also believe that we were all very supportive of one another, which was really a beautiful scenario to be in. And I've only been in that situation maybe a couple of times in my entire career. Do you remember a show called Celebrity Fit Club?
I do remember that show. Yes, let's
Right?
talk about
Yeah, so I did that show. I had just moved to New York, actually. And it was so funny because I just left LA, moved to New York City, and booked a job in LA. So I was literally flying back and forth to LA every week. It was bananas. Um, and that show was interesting. I actually started dating the trainer on the show, Harvey Walden, after that. So that was a pivotal moment in my journey. That show was interesting. It tested me in a lot of ways, personally, and losing weight on live television, or it wasn't live, it was taped, but doing it in front of the world, you know, thank God there was no social media back then because I probably would have quit. But it was a really good experience. And from that, I became a Jenny Craig spokesperson. This was coming off of, so right before that, I became the spokesperson for Lane Bryant. Best job, one of the best jobs I've ever had in my entire life. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's really funny. I saw this quote the other day, Hannah. We're just having a conversation, right? We're just
Sure.
talking, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna interrupt you and say this for a second. I saw this quote, or somebody said something the other day on social media, and they said, "Don't just acknowledge your successes, feel your successes." And I was
I love
like,
yeah.
and so, like, when I get the opportunity to talk to women like yourself, and you have so many questions, and you remember some stuff I don't even remember. So when that happens, I'm sitting here and I'm like, my inner voice is saying, you don't even really understand your successes, because you're not really, I'm just going through, I'm not going through the motions, but I'm living my life, and I'm not taking that moment to relish
Mhm.
in my successes. So it's like, when I get to recount them with you, Hannah, it feels really good, because it is a moment of like, oh yeah, I did that. Oh my God. And you did that. It's like having
Aw,
a personal
so happy.
conversation with myself. So it's really funny. Like, Lane Bryant was one of my entire career. It is probably in my top two jobs I've ever had, ever.
Wow. Why do you think that is? Like, what made it such a moment for you?
Everything was in alignment with who I wanted to be and what I wanted to be, and including the people, right?
Mhm.
I showed up. No one was criticizing me for my body or for my looks. They loved how I was. Like, I remember, and this seems so simple and basic, but there was a lady that I'm still friends with, by the way, who still works there. Her name was Kathy Quickard. Hey, Kathy. Um, and I remember we were waiting for something or doing something, and she said, are you hungry? Like, what do you want? And I was like, I would love a pretzel, a big fat pretzel. And she looked at me and she was like, I'll go get you one. What kind of sauce do you want with that pretzel? And I was like, I have died and gone to heaven. Because it was one of those things where, you know, coming off of American Idol and having a number one hit, do you know what people wanted to talk about? They wanted to talk about my weight. And I was like,
You
you got to be kidding me.
you said something back to that American Idol. There was like this shot of you and you're talking, you're like, they put me in I want to say you said the fat girl section. And I was like,
They did. They
I'm like,
categorized me that way. And I was like, whatever.
wow. I'm like, this whole body shaming thing, it comes up in every industry. It just comes across the board and it sucks, as you would say.
I-
That just sucks. So
yeah.
so so back to the pretzels. So you're dealing with people who love you and accept you for who you are, which
Oh
is
my God.
beautiful.
And the women, so they were opening up. Lane Bryant opened, we did a tour of their flagship stores across the country. And I would walk into these malls, and all these women would be lined up to see me. And I
Oh, I
had some of the most beautiful conversations with women, and they looked at me with tears in their eyes, and they said, "We are so glad that we have someone like you representing us." And
yes.
in that moment, I understood. I had the privilege of having a job that I was in alignment with mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I was pouring into them as much as they were pouring into me. The company was pouring into me. Like, everybody was breathing life into everybody. And it really, truly was a beautiful thing. It was one of my favorite jobs. Like, and they didn't do a lot of celebrity
Yeah.
faces. They had Queen Latifah once upon a time, but they hadn't done a lot of that. So I felt really honored to represent women in America. And I look, and some of these women, we didn't look alike at all, but whatever, there was this something resonated with them and me, and it really truly was a beautiful thing. So yes, that was one of my favorite jobs in my career.
So, speaking of stigmas, and
Hmm.
I think we're going to bounce around in this conversation. You recently shared on socials, "Do I look mean?"
Yeah.
And you gave these examples of how people may or may not see you as, when you're not laughing, you're not smiling, you give off this look, right? What made you decide to go social with that question? And what kind of a response did you get?
You know what? People loved it. And I have to give my team credit for that, because one of my team members, Paris, she sent it to me. She said, I'm going to send you something. And she sent a laughy face. And she must have been going through my videos and noticed my facial expressions. And she put that together. And I died laughing. And she was laughing too. And I was like, you know what? That's real. I think that people do, especially earlier in my career when I was not as confident and secure in who I am.
Mhm.
But I will also say a topic of my conversation with my therapist right now is being labeled an angry Black woman. And I am, I finally said to my therapist, I said, I'm so sick of that shit. Sorry, I said a cuss word. Um,
You're good.
but I think that women in general,
Mhm.
when they stand up for themselves and they have a voice, they I mean, that label is smacked on them so quick, like, oh, she's just angry, And I'm like, what? I'm angry because I can tell you exactly what I need, exactly what I want, and tell you that I have boundaries, right? I'm not a doormat. And so when my team member put that together, I was able to laugh. And I thought, as long as I'm laughing at it, I don't care if other people can't laugh at it, because we all have that, right? Like,
Yeah, you
my expression is fix your face, fix your face. Because
do.
sometimes when you're looking at people and you're not talking, it's all over your face, what you really think. And
Yes.
so I'm at that point to where I truly, learning what my own boundaries are and discovering my own boundaries. I don't care what people think, and people who know me and know that I am quite funny sometimes, but they also know that I can be really, really serious sometimes, which can be intense. And that's what that video captures, my intensity.
It's like the combo. They can see it all. It is true though. Our faces say it all. If and I am one of those too. I don't even have to speak, and my face is kind of like, really. There was something that came out in the media, and everything that I was thinking was in the photo, and I was like, oh my gosh, I should probably forewarn my
Right.
team that this is in the world, and this is definitely not good for, But it is how I was feeling, and I was speaking about a topic passionately, like I was so angry and so passionate, and I was putting these boundaries, and my face said it all. So when you shared that, I was like, yes, my kind of girl.
Yes, well, one of the conversations that I'm having with a very dear friend of mine is about how women have not been allowed by society to be in touch with their anger. Like, it's okay for men to be angry.
Mhm.
Like, nobody ever says, to a guy, oh, well, don't be angry, or, that's not, don't do that. They don't say that. They're like, he's mad, let him be. But when a woman's mad, it's calm down.
Mhm.
What's your problem? And I'm like, what's my problem?
What?
I don't have a problem. I'm mad. That is not a problem. That is the situation.
I love it. I love it. I'm having so much fun today. You're like the breath of fresh air I needed today.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad.
We've talked about American Idol. We've talked about your fitness. We've talked about Lane Bryant. What was next?
Ooh, what was next? Oh, I know exactly what was next. I opened up a restaurant and became a restaurateur. And that was a lot of fun. I've always known that I always knew I would own a restaurant since I was in college because I had a strategic business class that I really loved. And we studied, we studied restaurant chains, growth, supply, all that stuff, supply, demand. And, I always knew I would own a restaurant, but I thought it'd be a Waffle House instead of a steakhouse.
I remember you saying that somewhere, but it wasn't. It was incredible.
I was keeping it real, Hannah, keeping it real. Yeah, so I opened a restaurant, and that's really when I transitioned from LA to New York and, really kind of made the East Coast my home.
Wow. So, restaurant owner, how did it go? Like, what I mean, are you like this incredible cook? Because I feel like you are.
Um, you said incredible. I did not. I love to cook. As a matter of fact, in my travels, I opted to rent an apartment instead of stay in a hotel because I need to cook. Cooking is a part of my therapy, and it really makes me happy. The thing I love more than singing is feeding people.
Ah, okay.
It brings me a lot of joy. And so I would like to think that I'm an amazing cook, but my friend Richard is also an amazing cook. I love on people with food, and it makes me very happy. And I also love on myself with food. It's been a part of my journey of, growing up in the South and reinventing trying to recreate all of um, my Southern, meals and making them healthy. Um, that has been, a fun part of my journey. Yeah, and I love to cook. I did not cook at the restaurant. We had an amazing young chef named Eric, and he was French culinary trained, and he did all the cooking. But, it was like having people in your
Mhm.
house every night. And I love to entertain. So it was really great. Started out great, didn't end so well, not because the restaurant wasn't great, but the partnership, kind of dissolved. And then, it was just time to move on. It was a thing that I did. One of the things that I've done that I'm really proud of. I learned a lot about business and partnerships and food and
Mm.
all that stuff. Um, and I wouldn't change it. It was a really great experience.
So I have to know, Southern food is like it's so good, right? I'm thinking, I mean, it is. So how do you make it healthy? Because everything that makes it
You know
so
what? I know. It's a joke, right? Some things you can make healthy and most you cannot, I don't eat, I grew up on a farm, so we ate fried foods, and we are meat eaters. We're carnivores, so we raised a lot of meat on our farm. And you find other ways to, you know, take a spin on a dish, but it's never like,
yeah.
never like the original. Um, and it's funny because I won't order fried chicken anywhere. I won't. I'm
Mm.
like, I just won't. I'll make it myself. I make fried chicken like once a year. Like a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, I had brunch at the house, and I made fried chicken and waffles, and it was amazing. And yes, I double fried that fried chicken, honey, and it was amazing. So you just kind of wait it out, and you say, okay, this is my moment. I'm going to splurge here, and I'm just going to do it. Because that's the thing about Southern food. When you go messing with it, there are some things you just can't recreate, like
Yeah.
you can't go messing with the mac and cheese. Sorry, you just can't, there's no way around it. You really can't mess with the fried chicken either. Like, you just got to go for it. You either go big or go home.
I'm saying that's why when you're saying like healthy and Southern food, I'm like, wow, I don't know because like
It's
when
tough.
I'm going into what I'm in Vegas, so I mean, I don't know if we really have like an extraordinary jaw-dropping Southern food restaurant, but like our ones that we do have here, I'm like I'm going in big and I'll suffer later because
For later.
bad for you, but it's in the flavor, right? So you got to enjoy. So you kind of
Yeah.
got me. Wow,
Are
healthy.
some things, like so take, for example, one thing that I've missed and I've been thinking about a lot is turnip greens. Turnip greens are a staple in the South, and, but what goes in turnip greens is a big piece of fat back, a big piece of pork,
Mm-hmm.
that you go in that seasons it, right? And so I'm like, all right, how can we do this? My girlfriend and I have discovered that you can put like turkey meat or turkey bones in the greens,
Okay.
and it flavors it. It's still not the same, but it's close, and it is healthier. And sometimes I'll just instead of putting, my mom used to buy a piece of, we call it jowl because it's just fat. And sometimes I'll just take and put some bacon, like a few strips of bacon,
Yeah.
not a half a pound of bacon, but a few strips of bacon in, and you just gotta you cut back where you can when you can. Like I don't eat a lot of Southern food anymore. I save it for when I go home, or I was just in Louisiana working, and oh my gosh, I'm so glad I detoxed before I got there, and I had to detox when I left. But the food is so good. I had this major epiphany where I realized that everything that I was struggling with was going on inside of me. It wasn't external. It was all inside. And so I've been on that path for probably like 10 years, and
Wow.
it's still going, which is why I'm solo traveling right now. So,
You do mention too your journey. I'm on this journey,
yeah.
and for all transparency, I feel like every person goes through some form of what you're describing. Like you can have all the success in the world. You can have all these things materialistic, the success, everything that goes with it. But there is a point in time where I feel like our mentality shifts, our heart shift, our souls
Yeah.
shift. And we're not always ready for that shift. And then it's like the question of what do I do now? Am I on the right path? Am I living the way that I want to? Did I follow my plan A to I, as you mentioned? And I wish that more people would share that so
Mm,
that the world knows it's okay to feel what you're feeling. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay to be imperfect. Like, those are part of life's moments that I feel we're all supposed to experience. What's not okay is staying there.
mm,
So but it is a journey, right? It's
yeah,
ever going. And how do we convey that message to others to say, look, you can be the most successful person in the world, but you're going to have bumps and bruises in the road, and you're going to want to change direction, and it's okay. It
yeah,
is. I
yeah,
mean, you're still standing, you're glowing, you're growing, you're still doing things. So with
yeah.
that said, what's next?
I'm so glad you said that, Hannah. I appreciate you saying that out loud and not keeping that to yourself, because I posted something the other day on social about how much do you share? How much is too much? How much do you overshare? And so that's kind of where I am, because I am in the thick of it with my journey. I am. And about a year and a half ago, I started to ask myself, how can I be more authentic with my fan base? How can I be more authentic in my life? How can I just show up more authentically for myself, and therefore, be a light for others? I know 100% that we cannot really help other people unless we are authentic, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm great at sharing one-on-one. I am an open book. But when it comes to putting it out to the world, I am like a little crab. I just scurry back into my little shell and I sit there. I don't even peek my head out. I take a nap. I just wait until I know everybody's gone. But it's true, that's where I am. And I am growing through that myself, right? Right now. And
Mhm.
how do you know, I think if I'll just speak for myself, I think when you're already going through something that is difficult, right? People on social media are so critical. People are so quick to stay in their shell and just stick a finger out and point it at you, and their finger just happens to be their keyboard, so they type whatever they want to type. Um, Without any empathy for what the other person is going through. And so I have always said, I don't need anyone else judging me or ridiculing me because I am really good at that. Like you
Yeah.
you can't beat me up better than I can beat me up. I know how to do that, right?
Yes.
So,
Me.
but I'm human, right? And so I don't want to read people's comments because my job on my journey is to sort things out in my head for
Mm.
myself, right? But to your question, sharing and how do you let people know that it's okay? I am stepping into that right now. I am, I am doing some documenting through my social media, but then I have a side platform. I'm using Twitch to
Mhm.
have the more intimate conversations, right? And I truly believe that the people who take the time and want to follow me on Twitch, they are the people who can receive a word or deposit a word back into me because it's not just a one-way street. That's one of the things I remember the first time I realized when during my coaching that my clients were depositing back into me just as much as I was depositing, if not more, back into them. They were we were feeding each other, right? And so I feel like that is what I am charged with. My soul, my spirit is getting to that level where I can share, not just the surface level stuff, that's what everybody's doing, right? Sharing the surface level stuff. But I am on a journey and it ain't always pretty. I see my therapist while I'm traveling and I had therapy yesterday and it was fugly, honey. It was fugly. Fugly. Let me tell you, it was not cute. It didn't feel good. It sucked. And she holds this beautiful space for me and allows me to also learn how to hold space for myself. And I think that's what people need to know, right? Um,
Yeah.
Holding space for yourself because there is no such thing as perfection, and I talked about my plan A through I. For the
Mhm.
first time in my life, I don't have a plan.
Oh, I love it.
It is it is scary. It is mind blowing. And it's liberating. My new word for myself, the word that I'm trying to embrace every day is freedom.
Mm.
And my newest celebrity crush, I'm saying this loud and proud, I'm putting it out into the universe. My new celebrity crush is Marlon Wayans.
Oh boy.
Marlon. And maybe it's because I'm also on my journey, but he is on a journey, man, and I see him. I
Mm.
see him. My girlfriend and I was visiting her in March and we watched his comedy special together, and his spirit was just beaming through. And I saw something yesterday because I now follow him slash stalk him on Instagram. No, I don't stalk him, but I do follow. I was like, don't do that. Um, and he said he was doing a podcast interview, and he said, he said this is not verbatim, but the gist of what he was saying is that, people think that stuff and money is
Mm.
going to fulfill you.
And
And
it does.
It doesn't. It doesn't. And Hannah, people were writing in the comments. Somebody wrote, I love how people who have money talk about money doesn't fulfill you. And I'm like, this guy just gave you some real wisdom, right? But that's the thing. You can only receive at
Mhm.
the level you are at, right? You can't receive something that you're not ready to receive.
You just got to tell him, pipe down, shallow how, and really dig deep for what the real message is meant to be heard, you know?
Yeah. And watching him say that, I can tell just by the way he speaks in his face, the expressions on his face, that he is really in a deep dive place with himself. And I've asked God and the universe to bring more people like that into my life, like people who are on this path, on their own path, who understand it and who get it. And that's really that's where I am. I want to be in that mix of people who are aware of that there is a journey and there is a path.
When we're in the public eye, if we want to be ridiculed or judged, we can just go in our front door of our home because those are the biggest ones. Our family always has something to say. You should do this, you should try that. So ease up on people because everybody needs that confident feeling of knowing like, hey, I'm not going to be judged. This is
Yeah.
a no judgment zone.
Well, one of the things that is a part of my messaging now for, that I share with people is that you can't give to others what you do not give to yourself, right? So people can't give empathy to others if they can't give empathy for themselves. So they are critical and judgmental of themselves and others. And I think that if we all took a moment, no matter the scenario, right, no matter the situation, regardless of what our beliefs are, if we all took a moment to look at the person who is going through a hard time, who made some bad choices or did some bad things, if we all took a moment to look at that person and say, what's their story?
Yeah, because there is one there.
Everybody has a story.
Yes, definitely.
Everybody. And so I think we could all just use a little more empathy,
I
because
always say the world needs a bear hug. I was listening to one of Oprah's Soulful Sundays, and she had the author of Eat, Pray, Love. And
okay.
she asked her a question, and she said, the question was more or less, about how do you feel about your life? And Elizabeth said, I love my life. Every ounce of it, every piece of it, every piece of pain, every piece of joy, every piece of happiness, whatever my life is supposed to be, I'm going to take it and I'm going to live it. And I was like, yes.
Mm.
Like I felt that through and through.
What a beautiful place to be, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
am growing there. I am growing there. And when that movie came out, I was um I was in my 20s and I was with my therapist, my therapist that changed my life. Oh my gosh, she was a godsend. And I said to her, I was like, I'm gonna watch Eat, Pray, Love. And she's like, no, you're not. She was like, not right now. This is not a good idea. And so I just watched it. I just watched it before I started my travels. I got in
Wow.
the middle of the bed, I ordered a pizza, and I sat there and I ate Eat, Pray, Love. And one of my favorite lines from that movie is when the guy turns to Julia and says, you know how you change your life? Or, yeah, you know how you change your life? You gotta pick your thoughts the same way you pick your clothes that you wear every day. And I was
Yeah.
like, I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, I can do that. And that's the thing. Understanding, like I understand that we all have choices. And one of the big revelations in my life was that we always have choices. We may not like them, but we
Hmm.
always have choices, right? It's like when I was a kid, if I didn't like what there was to eat, It wasn't that there wasn't anything to eat. I just didn't like what was on my plate. And my mom was like, well, this is what you're eating, right? And there's a couple things on the table, so pick one, but this is it. You know, I didn't like those choices, but I didn't want to go to bed hungry either. I didn't like that choice either, right? So that's life. That's how I look at life. It's like I may not like the choices, but I always have a choice. And there's freedom in knowing that and
Mhm.
understanding, because when people say, I don't have a choice, you feel stuck. And that's limiting. That's a limiting belief. And when you realize, okay, I got some choices, I don't like them, but let me look at these choices, right? Because that allows you to keep moving. And people don't believe that they can choose their thoughts, and it is a very powerful thing
Mhm.
to learn that you can choose your thoughts. It will change your life.
Agreed. I feel like we've talked about so many different things, but it's so true. We have choices. Let's make the best of them, without breaking our brain.
Hmm.
Um, and eliminate some of that stress we put on ourselves
Yeah.
on the day to day. But I'm so excited. I can't wait to talk to you again and see where you are in the journey.
Me
I feel like
too.
I'm putting it to the universe.
Yes.
So now what are you doing? What are you working on right now?
I am working on me.
Mm,
I am I am my project right now.
yeah.
Um, it's funny you should ask me that, and it's funny that that's my answer, because I'm just kind of
That's
realizing that
okay.
as you ask me this question. Like this is unfolding right now, real time, Hannah, real time.
It's okay.
I am working on me. I am questioning everything in my life right now in a good way.
Mhm,
A year and a half ago, I was engaged to be married, and I had committed. It was not going that great, but I remember looking at my friend saying, this is my guy. I am doing this. I am committed to this. And then, like, shortly after that, I was like, oh my God, I can't. Like, I have to leave. And
wow.
so it wasn't a part of the plan, and I didn't have a plan, but I knew I couldn't stay. Right. And so my prayer was to God in the universe is that I'm no longer looking for a relationship,
Mm,
a single relationship. I'm not looking for one person to be my everything. The expectations of that are too much. I think it's in that moment I felt like it's unrealistic. I don't want to be somebody's everything, and I don't want somebody to be my everything. And so I said to God, I said, I want to be in relationship with people. I want
mm,
to meet good people. I want to break bread with good people. I want to hear people's stories. I want to share with people. I want to sit with people and just be with people, you know, and create relationships, right? No matter what they are, if they're for a season, a lifetime, whatever. And so here I am on this journey, and I grew up in the South, so I'm learning about the things that we are conditioned to as women, and I have been trying to fit myself in the box of women's traditional roles. And God has shown me every step of the way that my life is everything but traditional. And I'm 45 and I'm just now getting that message. Thanks. Could have said it louder. But now it's like, I'm just saying, I realize that everything I thought I wanted, I don't want.
mm. Oh, that is so profound, and I feel like God is saying better late than never.
Right or
So
late, yes, you did. Yes, 100%. So I'm just, I'm working on me because I am a work in progress, and I'm about to come up on something that's very difficult for me that I knew was coming. And, I'm going to go through it with my eyes wide open and my heart and my soul open to receive and grieve it all, because it's not going to be an easy thing for me. But I also know that there's something really beautiful for me on the other side, and that there is no way that I will come out on the other side the same person. It's not possible.
Well, it was truly an honor to speak with you today. And for everyone watching, Miss Kimberley Locke, the incredible Kimberley Locke. And I don't think this will be the last time we'll be talking to her. Thank you for joining us on The Rise.